Hello, welcome to the halftime huddle. This is the opportunity halfway through the week to take a little bit of a break, to take a breath. It's the hump day. It's Wednesday. The opportunity to revisit it. And if you're talking the sporting analogy, it's the time when you all get off together and have the orange segments before you set off for the second half. So today I've got a lovely opportunity to speak to someone I met on a brilliant summit that we've already spoken to the person who ran the summit, and I met Tania in one of the breakout rooms, and I was very keen to see and have a conversation with her on this. So before I go any further, then let's bring Tania on and say hi. So hi, Tania.
Hi, Mark. How are you? Thank you for having me here.
Good. It's good. It's good to see you here. We've been having a little bit of a conversation beforehand, and I hope we can bring some of the topics we talked about beforehand. But first off, rather than sort of me introduce you, it'd be a great opportunity to do what I like to say here, and we do this quite a bit, is to talk about your origin story, why you are what you do, and an opportunity to share with others what you do and how you do it, and why you got to where you are now. So, if you'd like to sort of give us, what was the little Peter Parker moment when you became Spider Woman? So.
Okay. Well, let's go backward from the present. So right now I work with change makers, with creatives and freelancers who are ready to tap into their genius, into their ecosystem, personal internal ecosystem, and share their gifts with the world with confidence. So I am an empowerment and self-leadership mentor and also a holistic communications strategist. So I put these two worlds together. And how it started? It started many years ago. Actually, this year, 2025, I am celebrating 40 years in the world of communications. I started very little on radio first when I was about 7 years old, but I take in account until I was 11 that I started writing scripts for TV, and from there then on, I I didn't know that communication was going to be part of my life, but I think it's my genetics. It's part of my genetics, and so I started writing. I love writing, and so I was writing for TV. Then I went to the radio again, then working also for newspaper. I worked as a journalist and doing a lot of things on the mass media as a girl and then teenager. And then when it came the time to choose the university path. By the way, I love everything that has to do with science, with how our body works. So I study also during the time I was doing my high school. I had this high school with a technical um, learning education on a clinical laboratory. So, and I was doing things for in the children's hospital. So then what happened is when it came the time for me to choose my career, I really didn't know what to study. I mean, I because I had so much love for many things. I loved teaching. I was teaching my peers since secondary school, and I loved nature and I loved education. So I decided to go to take this test at the university. And by this time, of course, I had been already a long road into the communications world. But however, I went there, and the counselor said to me, "You are the perfect fit for communication and for psychology." And I said, "Oh, psychology? Oh, no, 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 psychology, not at all." And the funny thing is that now I love psychology, and it's part also of my world. And so that's how I started. And then, well, I continued doing work on communications in mass media. Then I was invited also to teach. And so I work in the educational realm as a teacher and also doing workshops and conferences. And then it came the time where my heart was looking for more deeper inside. And so I started also going in through everything that has to do with the meaning of life. And so that brought me also to paths of spirituality and personal growth for myself. But then later on, by the way, I'm originally from Mexico. And so I have been traveling different places. And there was this year where I have decided to get married. So I moved to Switzerland. And of course, I came back here, and it was a different language than mine, a different culture. So at that time, I decided to become a mom. And put all my mind and heart and physical strength to be a mom. And I decided to have my baby and not give it to someone else to educate it. And I thought, I won't work until she is 7. But of course, a creative mind. I couldn't wait. So I started doing a lot of work like for nonprofits, but non-paid work, just for the fun of doing it. And then also because as a Mexican abroad, I started writing. I was writing my blog since I don't remember, And I was also creating web pages and all that for myself, for my family, for my friends. At that time when there was not WordPress, we have to learn coding and all that. So I was helping a lot of nonprofits and communications and relations, public relations, etc. And then suddenly people started asking me, "Can you help me to do this? Can you help me to do that?" So it was very organically how I started my business. It was like, oh, people is paying me for doing this, and for me it was nothing, because it was part of my genius. And so, but when I decided to create my business, I decided to do it in the world of communications. And at the beginning, because I thought, sometimes we put ourselves like these stories in our mind that are not true. I was saying to myself, oh, because French is not my mother language, I won't be able, to write and talk and do things like I will do in English or in Spanish. And so I decided to go into the visual since I love everything visual. Um, and so, but what happened is when people was coming to me to ask me for whatever was their visual communication, I realized that I was, since I was very young, I had this kind of superpower of seeing people's potential. So I would see their potential, and because I had also worked in everything organization and creating structures, I would see everything about their businesses that was not working, and the disconnection between sometimes their own communication and what they were and what their clients were expecting from them. And so I decided I couldn't just do that. So I started working more into the branding and the creating their everything communication, but connected from the inside. So we started working into let's see who I am. And from there, going from the inside out. And so that's how it started. And that's how I am now, putting all these worlds together. So that's why the holistic communications, because I bring into the table all my experience also in my studies of emotional intelligence, positive psychology, and the importance of connection and meaningful world, a meaningful work for a meaningful world. So that's how I started, and that's where I am now.
Amazing. I always love when I listen to people's journey to where they are now. It always it's astonishing, but lovely and beautiful how they just meander around, and what seems to be, like you said, what seems to be something that, I don't know what it is, it turns into a superpower. um, and often, what we I talk here, and if for anyone who's heard me talk on this before, I talk about superpowers and kryptonite, and often what is your kryptonite becomes your superpower. And I love your experience and your journey of how something that you just did, it's something that you just have to do because it's part of what you do. Communication, you look at said, and creativity and visual stuff, and then building from the inside outwards is astonishing. So how long, you said you've moved from Mexico. How long have you been? Just quickly, I know where you are, but for others, where are you based at the moment?
Right now, I'm based in Switzerland, and I have been here for 20 years already.
My goodness, that's a fair old time. So it's a fair old time. So just before we step into it, are you comfortable with your French now?
Oh, yes. And
See?
oh, very comfortable with my French. And I tell you, I have, you know, observed myself and realized that actually there was all these kind of stories that I was having in my head. It was not the real thing. But I was putting the barometer very high, so I was comparing like how we write as a journalist,
Mm.
and I was saying, oh, I will never write like that I mean in French. But at the end, even people whose mother language is English or Spanish, or not because they speak the language, they are going to be doing it like a journalist or a communicator, right? Or a writer. And so, yeah, yeah, yeah. But it was part of my personal growing and evolution, to finding also my personal power. So that's why I am also able to help others into that, their personal power, and embrace it.
Absolutely, and I love the idea of communication being about getting your heart out to other people, and that, that can be in all kinds of different ways, and it doesn't necessarily have to be the clear, precise English, or the clear journalistic French, or Spanish, or
Yeah.
etc. As long as you can get your communication, your idea out, then that's a successful communication. Which I love the idea that you talk about that. And I also love the idea of your journey and your conscious decisions to take the various different steps as you go along, and helping other people to do that and become, to bring their heart out is a wonderful journey. So more power to that elbow. So in particular, I noticed you talked about helping people sort of in branding. How do you sort of, where do you start? Do you start with who they are and what they
Actually, I am starting from when I talk about my work, I don't talk about branding.
yeah.
I talk about embracing your genius,
Ah,
your talents, your wisdom with purpose. And so from the inside out, so you can tap into that creative power you have. And from there, we go into the rest. Because for me, is like I feel it's part of my mission also to bring this spirit of being a human when we create. And so when we communicate, so communication, connection, because communicating doesn't mean that we are connecting, right? And so that connection, and for that we need first, and this is so fun, because I always think about that we ourselves, we are a communication system. All our body communicates inside, so we can create whatever we want to create, physically speaking. And then when it comes to our businesses or sharing our message or creating something, everything starts from the inside. And when someone is not presenting themselves how they really are, because sometimes it's not because they don't know who they are, but because sometimes we haven't tapped with this health confidence into our kryptonite, like you mentioned it before, right? And so, but when we start working and doing things from that genius, natural genius, our talents, our wisdom from experiences, then we can share our message, even even sleeping, because you can tell it in many ways because it's who you are. But so many times we are trying, particularly in the entrepreneurial world, try to be like these models that we see outside, and so we start copying that. But not only that, also because we have been somehow conditioned since childhood, you know. And so I speak a lot about those stories that we talk to ourselves and the meanings we weave our own stories. And so that's a big part of my work. So and from there then we can start creating. So my focus is not on the branding, but my focus is into the inner. And you were mentioning something before about that, when you were talking about my path. Since a very young age I was like, which is my purpose, which is my purpose in life? Because as I told you, since very young, I was in this world of, okay, why I exist, So philosophy was in my life since I was very, very, very little. I started reading because my mom says no when I ask to, I want that book, mom. Can you read it to me? And she said, no, it's not for children. So I don't know how I did it, but I took that book and I started reading and I learned with that book. And those spoken Zarathustra from Nietzsche. So I had this inner way of seeing the world, and I was looking for my purpose. And at a certain point, I took courses and I study about purpose and the science of purpose and everything. And I remember one time when I was studying this purpose thing within a very, very nice group, wonderful, wonderful guides. And one thing we did was like going to the wilderness. And I went to the forest, and this is in the middle of the winter, and there is snow, and no way, I mean no pathway. And so being there in the middle, you have no idea how you get confronted with your own fears. And it was like the whole nature was talking to me, and I learned so much from that. And then when I look back, I realize I have been living my purpose all my life. And this is what I want to bring into the world, that we look into our own stories, because there is that purpose, that chasing purpose. Our real purpose in life is to be who we are, who we came here to be. And the expression of that could be anything. So purpose doesn't equals doing or working. Purpose equals who I am. Who am I? So just to make like that. And so that's why I loved your kryptonite thing, because for me is so, so important, and it's part of, I mean, do you imagine a world where everyone is able to see themselves without judgment, with love, with compassion, and bringing all these talents that sometimes they are so close to us, those talents that we don't value it. and then communicating and connecting with others as how they are. I mean, I will love, you see dream here.
Mhm. Yeah,
So that's my dream. Maybe I won't see it, right? But dreaming for me is very important, and it's not equal for me. That's not equal fantasizing. Equals having the energy to imagine things. And that is what entrepreneurship is about. Imagine things to bring ideas to the real world. We are creatives, we are creators, where creativity doesn't equal being an artist, but just creating things that could be like solving problems, making things better, or, of course, creating art. So, yeah, that is, I love this that I do in my work, really. And because I myself, having all these talents, there was a moment in my life where I was trying to find them when everything was already inside, right? And that's what I see many times with the people that comes into my world, and we work together. And then from there, it comes the communication part.
absolutely. And I can wholly understand how when you really connect with your purpose, then the communication piece becomes easy because it's just who you are and what you're talking about, and your branding is just who you are, and your purpose shines through. So but I can also resonate with the fact that sometimes that's hard to find, because people are not, the way we're educated sometimes isn't such that we can find our own purpose. It's about doing what other people want us to do, and fulfilling a sort of a route that is the path that is the standard path, the path that people are told they do. Whereas when you reconnect with who you are and what you're here to do, then that can be difficult to find. And having someone like you who can help people reconnect with that is a great way to sort of shine your purpose through everything you do.
Yes, that's why I have created this program called Shine Your Genius.
There you
Because
go.
it's about that. And it's not about finding the purpose, because when we talk about finding purpose, it's like if it is outside there and I have to take this magnifier, no, it's not about. It's about embracing who we are and understanding also our personal ecosystem. How do we actually function? Because so many times we try to function like the society has said, you know, and or we see these role models like in entrepreneurship, for example, and then we try to follow that, and then there's come the time that now I think we are in times when we listen, burnout is like high, 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 stress is high, 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 high. And so many times it is because we are functioning in ways that we are not meant to function. Each one is different. And you mentioned something, Mark, about that when you know your purpose, then it's easy to talk about it. It's easier to embrace it.
Hmm.
But then it comes also this ecosystem of ours where it enters, other stuff that has to do with emotions, with the stories that we tell to ourselves, with if we were conditioned in which ways, because you could know your purpose and really, and there's many people who comes to me that are kind of into the wellness and healing practicing and artists. They know what they are here, to bring into the world, and they are passionate about it. But then when they have to communicate it, it's like, oh my goodness. And because so many
Mm.
times, but so many times we try to do things like everybody's doing it, or like someone told you, oh, in entrepreneurship in an online world, you have to do videos, you have to do this, follow this structure and this, and not everything works for everybody. And the reason is because we are wired differently. And when we start seeing ourselves, how do I work internally? Which are the mechanisms, if we can say it like that, that helps me to take the right decisions at the right moment with the right people? That will really change the game, like the A game.
Indeed, and I love that. And once you were saying that, I could hear the resonance in my mind. It's like giving you permission to work in a way that suits you rather than work in the way that everybody else says you should be working. That sounds to me
Exactly.
like a great release for some people, I would imagine. Um,
Yes. And it is a release, it is a release, like, to understand, like, if I am more energized doing like groups, why, and if I am depleted of my energy working one-on-one, why I have to do work on one, because someone said that you have first to do one-on-one before going to groups, right? Little examples like that, but I can give you many examples, and by yourself also, and with the people you work in your masterminds, how everything works differently for each one, and how each one is differently also. you know it's like, I have a beautiful daughter. Yesterday she was, I was thinking, I was going to tell you she's 18 years old, but no, yesterday was her birthday. Was her birthday. And for example, she loves studying, she loves, she's super creative, and she put herself up when she was at school. But I know her way of being is not meant for the regular system.
mm,
And as a parent, for example, and you can see that then later also in work, in the work, in corporate, and also in entrepreneurship, you know as a parent, we see our children, and we kind of know what is their way of personality and communication and all that. And I live in Switzerland, and in this area, for example, I was having this conversation with my daughter. She was telling me, "Mom, I remember when I was little, my peers at school were so stressed because they had a not so high note, I don't know, in math, and they were even trying to hiding it from their parents." And then the parents will say, he's not good on math, it has to work double, triple, and not looking at what they were good at.
mm,
And that happens also in entrepreneurship. I'm not saying, don't if I'm not good, let's say, in social media, and I want to go to social media, and I know why I'm going to social media, I want to learn, and I have to learn, right? But not because I'm not good in social media, I'm going to put all my energy and stress to be there when I thrive in other kind of personal networks, for example, you know? And I'm using the word I, but it's not necessarily my particular case, but it's a way to put it on. And so that happens a lot. And we focus on the things we think we are not good at, instead of saying, okay, I'm good at this. This is not only my zone of genius, but this is my natural talent.
mm,
And then the things I am not good at, okay, what I can take as a priority for me and what I can give away, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Or just be the supervisor. Or maybe I am very good at starting things, but I need people to come to finish them instead of biting myself. Oh, I don't finish stuff, right? So, yeah, it's part of the game.
Absolutely, and I'm a very strong person behind the idea of leaning into your greatness, because you can go from good to great by working on your, like you say, your genius. Whereas if you concentrate very much on what you're not very good at, you might get mediocre or okay in it, but you'll never have the same genius you'll get if you that you would get if you leaned into what is naturally for you to be to do, what is your genius, what is good. So essentially I like that idea of learning and understanding what you're good at, understanding what you're not so good at, not necessarily bad at, understanding what needs to be done within the business and what needs to be done, and leaning into where you're superb and brilliant and become great at, but leveraging other people, leveraging other tools, leveraging other ways of behaving and doing things, so that essentially you can use other people's geniuses or other things' geniuses to bolster what you're brilliant at.
Yes, and that also, I, I mean, I'm going to make a bold statement. When we don't do that, we go directly to stress mode
Yes.
and cortisol raises. And that's why there are so many numbers raising and raising, even in the entrepreneurial world, when we talk about burnout. Because it's like we take this, imagine if we have a motor that gives us the energy, and all our energy goes into the direction that is not the correct one, then it's like the motor needs more fuel, needs more diesel, needs more gas. And then we are running out of this because we are focusing in where is just depleting my energy instead of doing the things that actually makes me feel replenished, happy, fulfilled. And it is a very, now that I say the word fulfilled, how many times there are businesses that are successful but not fulfilling.
Yes.
And so, and we can go that way, but there will be a moment that our soul, our body will start crying. And we will need to sit down, or life make us sit down, and to restart and observe and learn from that and rebuild ourselves and our work and our business. Yeah.
No, absolutely. And one of the one of the rationales or the reasons behind what I do is there are so many wonderful, exciting, genius businesses out there that that run out of steam because essentially they're stressed out, they're burnt out, they're focusing on things that they're, that's taking them away from their their skills, their superpowers. That so many that they burn out and they disappear with the puff of smoke. That whereas if they'd have helped and focused and, like you said, relied upon trying to create a fulfilling business, a fulfilling, resilient, sustainable sort of business by focusing on what gives them energy, then there will be so many more wonderful businesses out there that would have just that now just disappear. And that was one of the rationales before behind doing what I'm doing, by helping these people connect with other people who can all work together to collaborate to build their businesses together by working together rather than trying to do everything for on their own. So I
Yeah.
love that analogy of the car traveling around. It's like the you know the friction you get from trying to wade through the or getting the car to go through the mud and the sliding. Whereas if you go on the path that's the right path, it's smooth, it works well, it goes better. I love that analogy and that metaphor. So
And you mentioned collaboration. A few days ago, I was given a workshop for a nonprofit, and I was asking them which of, when we think, if we think about this nonprofit as an entrepreneurship, it's a social, but it's a social entrepreneurship, and you think about your audience, which is the most important. And they were saying, our clients, future clients, our sponsors. And I said, very funny, well, actually, the most important one is Mr. and Mrs. Co. And they were like, what? Co. Connection, collaboration, communication, cooperation, community. We are all interconnected. And the first communication and connection is with ourselves. After that is with our environment, our people, our community. And so the work you do, Mark, is beautiful because you bring that space, a container for people who are in this journey, because actually it's a beautiful journey and it's not that easy. It's not an easy journey to be entrepreneur. And so out there, a lot of people talks about the beautiful part of a business, the figures, the numbers, the travels, the connections, and we speak very little about all what is behind, all the ups and downs, the struggles. And when people come together, like we met, in Susanna's work, and or you with your people in your masterminds, to collaborate, to connect, to communicate together and share, it's like, wow, I'm not alone on this,
mm,
right? I'm not the only one. That's one thing. And then the other piece is like, if we think about a puzzle and you have your genius and I have my genius, that maybe it's not the same, then the puzzle come together and we create better things. Talking to you, sharing with you, maybe will bring me more ideas or better ways of doing things, because you have another perspective and you can see things that I don't see, because it's like our nose is so close to our face that we need a mirror, right? So, yeah. So that's also what I do in my work, to be a mirror for the people who come to my world, so they can see themselves, believe in themselves, embrace who they are, and then communicate it with love, compassion, connection, but mostly with self confidence and valuing themselves, their talents, and their work. So they can create a business that is connected to themselves from inside out, that is successful, but also fulfilling without sacrificing their well being. For me, well being is so important because I went through so many things, physically speaking, that now is part of like my flag, my flag. And when I speak about well being, we are a whole. It's mind, body, emotions, spirit, energy. And so separating them sometimes doesn't work.
uh, that's bang on. Absolutely, you're so right there in that. There's so much of what we do that we hide and we don't talk about. and by sharing this with other people, and there are plenty of opportunities and options for people to find the people that they can share what they do, that they can get support. There's you've talked about the masterminds that we run, but there are other opportunities and options to just share and support each other as you grow. There's some people don't like to be in a group; they like to have one-to-one work. Find someone for whom you can be real with, and you can share with, and you can recognize and understand that you know the figures, the success stories that we all see about the entrepreneurs comes at a price for lots of effort. There's that image that you see of the path towards success that we think is a straight line, and then the people where the real path to success is up and down and left and right and towards
And
each
then
other,
circles.
and circle all over the place. The path to success is, and it's all unique. It's all individual, like you say. We all have our unique path to getting to where we are now and getting to where we want to be in the future. And having some people who you can help you along the way is a wonderful tool. And we talked about, we've mentioned superpowers. Yeah, humanity's superpower is humanity, basically.
Yes, that's why I was saying. I don't know if I said before or was just for you what we were talking, but that's why I was saying that for me it's like part of my mission to bring humanity, into the
Yes.
conversation, into the conversation, into the business world, and through communications. And the way to do it is just to accepting and embracing who we are, and accepting and embracing the other as they are, not trying to put all these masks that we already have because our conditioning as a personal life. But that's when real connection comes, because at the end, anything we say, either in written form and video, whatever the format, if this individual is not connected what she's saying, you will feel it.
Yeah.
You will feel it. How many times we see things and or listen someone and it's like, yes, or oh, something felt not off, something felt off, but I don't know what it is, because communication, 75%, others say it's that is more or less, but more or less passes through emotions. And emotions are energy. I can come here with a beautiful smile and tell you I'm so happy, but my energy will tell you the contrary if it is not true,
Mm.
right? Or I
Yeah.
won't say anything and you will just feel it, right? So that's why it's so important to bring humanity into the conversation. And many times, whoever have listened to me before, I will bring also the word nature and mother nature, because we are nature. We human beings are nature. If we learn from nature how they work, all the powers of nature in common, when you see, the seasons, the cycles, when you see nature takes the time to rest and to make in winter nurture those little seeds that then it's going to grow like a beautiful tree in maybe in spring, or in spring the sprouts, but then maybe late years later in summer, whatever. When we see how nature helps each organism are there collaborating, and so we as humanity, we have forgotten that we are part of nature and not above nature. And that's being human is to remember our roots as part of nature. A cat is not wondering why the butterfly is flying, or the dog is not saying, if I only can do moo like the cow. Or the tree is not being jealous and uh, about the flower, because the flower has these petals. And we do as human race, we do that kind of stuff. Yeah.
No, absolutely, and you're very right about the cycles of the cycles of the year and cycles of the longer periods as well. We are very often in danger, especially in business, of thinking that every quarter is the same, every time of the year is the same. We should be growth, 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 growth. Um, winter is different to the summer. Summers are different to the autumn, and people's cycles, need to be understood and need to be respected, and the cycle of the year and the world needs to be respected. If you, like you say, if you fight against it all the time, you're back to the same thing as you were saying beforehand. You're back to the burnout, the struggling against your environment. You're struggling against your strengths and weaknesses. You're struggling, and struggle just wears you down. So it's so much easier to roll and with the flow, and to go with the seasons, to go with the nature. So again, that's a very strong message, and I love the metaphor and the idea of that as well. As humanity needs to reconnect with nature, and entrepreneurs as part of humanity need to reconnect with nature, with cycles, with very much.
And with our own nature,
Yes. Mm.
because we have been into this kind of way of living that goes with the technology and society and all that, but that has also make us like change our sleeping patterns, our eating patterns, our working patterns, right? And so remembering that this body is the vehicle for all the greatness that is inside of us, right? Sometimes we forget our bodies. Sometimes, or so many times, we forget our bodies, and we want to continue, continue, continue. And that at the end doesn't help, because when we are well rested, when we have been taking care of ourselves and our bodies, physical, mental, emotional bodies too, we are more productive, we are more creative. That creative power that we have inside is like ready to bring all their own genius to us when we are on that state of being well. All the time, it will be something that doesn't go perfectly, because perfection doesn't exist.
No.
And if you ask me, a balanced life, well, if I put my attention in my work, I'm going to live something else in less. So, real balance, what it is not like equal. Balance is going with the way that I feel good, according what I want to accomplish at this precise moment, without forgetting that I have a body, not only a mind, emotions, that there is nature outside, but it also nature inside. For me, that has to do with balance. And I have learned it the very hard way, paying the consequences, not paying attention to that.
No, absolutely, and you're very right in terms of and we are as coaching, and sometimes in the coaching sort of circle, we are sometimes very guilty of trying to talk about balance as a very static thing. It's either balanced or it isn't. Whereas balance, real balance, is dynamic, and it moves up and down. And there are moments when when you have to rush around, you have to do things, you have to work, slightly different out of the sync. And there are times when you have to, like you say, recover, reconnect to your body, reconnect to your emotions, and balance is very much a dynamic back and forth, and we can be very guilty and I've seen sometimes in the coaching world of doing the measurement of balance in a one-off sort of moment. And if it's not balanced at that one-off moment, then we fell ourselves out of balance, and we're told we should do things to reconnect over things of area where really it's okay to be, the equilibrium isn't static, it's dynamic.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, and because each one is different. Like, for example, I take again my example on my daughter's example. I know that I am wired in a certain way, that I can, energetically speaking, I have a lot of battery, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I know I cannot expect that from my daughter. And she's not broken. She's not, no, it's just her way, the way that she is connected physically, energetically, doesn't work like that. If I make her do things like I do, she will finish on bed for 30 days, right? So understanding that, and because of that, we have to be also careful when we do business and try to follow strategies that are cookie cookie cutter, like because it worked for me, it will work for you.
Mm.
Not necessarily. Not necessarily, because we are not wired in the same way. Now, if it happens that we are in the same frequency, we have certain similarities in personality, energetics, and what I call the energy blueprint, oh, that will, of course, that will function for me, but not for everybody, not for everyone. So I think it's something that is important to always remember, because I have seen, for example, in my world, and I experience it myself too. Sometimes feeling guilty because I invested 10,000, 20,000 in this program or in this course or in this, coaching or whatever, and they give me these steps and I couldn't fulfill it. And then there are coaches that understand, but there are others that says, it's your mindset, it's you, there's a problem with you. And it's not about that, it's just that doesn't match who I am. And I'm trying to, like when we saying, I was sharing the example of a kid that maybe is not good on math, we try to put it on math when he could be thriving in biology, for example. So that happens so many times. If a structure or something, a methodology works well for everyone, why we are not all in the top of the mountain, right? So yeah, just a reflection about it.
No, absolutely, and you're very right, and I see that, and we can see that amongst people for whom they've invested in a framework or as you say, a number of different strategies, and they've tried very hard to fulfill the steps and the processes that these strategies come with, and they're finding these strategies hard, and they're not being able to fulfill them, and B, they're not working for them, and they then beat, like exactly what you say, beat themselves up about why is it not working for me? It worked for someone else, and it's even working for other people who are in the same process as you, but it's because, like you say, everything doesn't work, and that's also one of the beauties of business as a whole. There is no one way to do things. We're in the very lucky situation where there are multiple ways of doing things. There are multiple ways of we talk about communications. There are lots of different ways of communicating your worth and your value. There are lots of different ways of we're told we should be in TikTok, we should be in this social media, we should be in that social media, we should try that. But there are lots of ways of communicating and talking to people and interacting with people and sharing what you do. And sometimes we get het up by and beat ourselves up, exactly what you say, because I haven't got I haven't got thousands of followers, even though I'm finding this process, I'm doing the work, I'm still not getting
But
the hundreds
but
of.
we all know, Mark, we all know that followers
No,
doesn't equal clients. Number
yes,
one. Number one. And also, no, if it is a number two, so many times we, I will use the word confusion, but it's not the exact word that I want to use, but many times we confuse the message with the media.
yes,
And it's not one thing. The message is one thing. How I send the message, the channel I use, the tool I use is something else. I have been seeing people who is so focused on the tool that they forget the foundation. So we look so many times to the form that we forget the real heart of the thing we were wanting to share. So it needs to be, if I use this tool, okay, there is a reason I am using this tool. It could be an internal or external reason. Could be the external reason, my people is in this particular social media. The most of the people that I attract are more visual. For example, I'm just giving examples like that.
yeah,
At the end, we all have all the kind of, we all have visually communication style and auditory and all that, kinesthetic, but we have it in different
yeah,
degrees. It's like there was this dear friend that at many years ago she was my mentor in sales with heart, sales with soul. She will always put this example. We don't go like the kangaroos. We have the 2 feet, meaning all these um, things we have, but we always go with one in the front. And so that in the communications part is very important, because when we also learn that the other, maybe I'm very visual and I do use a lot of visuals, and visual is very important for everyone. But there will be people who they need to listen to it, or maybe they close their eyes and just listening, they can learn, they can get the thing.
yeah,
So when we understand that, we can imprint whatever we do with that. And also when we understand that there will be people whose communication or message will get right into the heart if we start with emotions, or some will say, oh, no, 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 I want the facts, right? So understanding how I work in terms of my communication style and what works for my clients. Of course, when we are like in social media, we don't know the person, our audience is a broad
yeah,
audience, we need to use all of this. But in a one-on-one, I was having this, I gave this workshop where there was a lot of people of different areas. There were coaches, psychologists, communicators, and we were talking about how so many times when they are talking with their clients, and someone said, even with my husband, they are talking the same language in terms of English, Spanish, French, but they do not understand each other. They think they can't get
Yeah.
along. It's like they are talking different languages. And so, what is happening there? That we have different communication styles, but also we have all these filters inside of
Yeah.
us that gives meaning to the words. And if to that we add that not everyone has developed the muscle of emotional intelligence, we get into the reactivity instead of listening, and then I answer. And so our minds are like, I'm trying to get the answer before I just, give the feedback. So there is no communication because really there is not feedback. There
Yeah.
is one way and then the other way, that way, the other way. So it for me it's fascinating. For me
Mm.
it's fascinating, and I see it like a whole. And I imagine also our bodies, when the neurons are creating synapses and communicating information through energy pulses to the rest of the body. And when we get disconnected from one part of the other, then there are all kind of physical issues in our own system, right? So I always it's part of my personality seeing connections where not necessarily the other people see the connections. So I can easily connect by biology and physiology with the nature and with business and and
Mm.
with personality and so yeah. And accepting that, embracing that is what makes things easier. Because how many of us entrepreneurs have talents that when they were expressing them, they got shut down or
Yeah.
criticized, and then they start putting it inside and not wanting to share it. But as I said before, when we learn how we work and we learn how actually our personal strategy, then we can take the decisions and sharing at the right moment with the right people because we are not meant for everyone.
No. 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 And as you were talking about the interaction and the feedback loop, and it sort of reminded me of there are some media where the feedback loop you get is immediate. You can, if you're talking one on one, the communication we have here is immediate feedback, whereas there are other media where you don't get the feedback. So it's very difficult to understand whether, like exactly what you say, the message is being communicated properly. So and we're not taught to especially when we're using some of these media to try and get the feedback to see, is my message coming across properly? Am are you receiving it in the way that that I was hoping to deliver it, and that kind of stuff. And it's very difficult when you're using the blanket, broadcast type um, um, method of talking to through others, some of the media, whereas back to your original sort of talking about is connection and communication is a two-way street. It's not a broadcast. It's a conversation, which is what we're trying to have in these conversations as well. So I'm loving that kind of, again, another that metaphor and that idea. So yeah, it's a nice way of sort of reminding ourselves that the message that we're trying to have a conversation, and some of the media that we're using isn't easy to have that conversation. So you have to work out how to use it as a conversational tool,
Yes.
communication tool.
And also to read between the lines, to learn how to read between the lines, because sometimes the feedback, when it goes like in media where it's broadcasted to many and we don't have the written or the verbal, oral feedback, at the end, there is feedback because we are not receiving feedback. So you are getting information from that.
Yes.
Our work is to let go, don't take it personal, and then see, what is this trying to tell me? Is it because my message is not connecting to the hearts of the others? Or is it because, and this is a hard one, how many times the intention behind the message is interfering? Because many times happens that we write a message or send out something, but with the wrong intention. I mean, because there is this conscious intention and there is this subconscious intention. So this is more kind of psychology stuff, but how many times we send it, we think it's because our business, to share our gift, to share our service, to sell something. But if I am inside of me with this internal intention of, I need the money, people will feel it.
Mm.
Or the mistaken motivation, not for the message, but for me sending the message is, I want to be recognized. I need to, it's like, because maybe if, let's take that example, maybe because if that is the mistaken motivation, I want attention. It's not that we are saying I want attention, it's just that there is like this curtain behind. So when that happens, why happens? Because we haven't found yet our own voice. When we haven't found our own voice, it's like I'm trying to get attention because I don't know how to actually connect with the other. It's just an example. Each case is different, each one is different, but I'm just giving examples because also the audience is going to feel it.
Yeah.
It's not only the message that we are sending and the intention of the message, but what is my personal intention behind that message? And sometimes it's not obvious because it's so in the subconscious mind that we don't see it right away. But when we look at the back, for example, I use Instagram, but I don't use it for my work. I use it for sharing the beauty I see around, my love for nature. And yes, I put things about my work. Yeah. But at the beginning, when I didn't found many years ago, I started in Instagram, I didn't found the use of it. I was start putting just things randomly, right? Like many of us.
Mhm.
And then one coach said, well, now your challenge is to write this, and this, and bring it up. Okay, I did the challenge, and then it felt off when I read it. So have to find the point, the middle point where here's the message I want to share. Here is the pressure of my coach making me feeling it and doing it. But what I am here with open heart and soul and purpose to bring into whoever read it and be able to detach from it, not waiting for a response, but just to be able to share it. I'm not saying that everyone has to do that, and it depends of the what in which cycle of your messaging are you, because if you are close to a launch, you need to do very, very intentional messaging, right? But
Yeah.
it's just to say that when we look back at what we have shared with a distance, we can see and feel the moment when we were writing that and sharing that and why, the why behind the why. And that helps us to auto evaluate and learn from ourselves too.
Very, very, very key message there for other people to try and understand and recognize the why behind the why. I love that. Thank you very much for that. um, I I could carry on this conversation for ages, and I'm pretty certain I will try and bring you on and have a more conversation with you. But I'm conscious that one thing I really wanted to do, and we teased this when we came to the beginning of the conversation about. I'd love to ask you what your book you would recommend, because we've come to the stage where I would love to find it, and we had a little bit of a tease before we had our conversation. So um,
Yes. And
so
when you told me, and you said to me, "Don't tell me, don't tell me, don't tell
no,
me
no,
which
don't
book."
tell me.
But I told you the book I want to share today. It's a book that I'm sure, pretty sure, you have read, and many, many, many of the people who is watching this conversation have read. And it is a children's book, but I invite you to see it from another perspective.
Yes,
It's
hold
the
on.
little
Give me a second. There we go.
is
The Little Prince.
the little prince. The Little Prince. And I know many of us have read it as a child, as a kid. But my invitation to you today is to read it again from the eyes of an adult, but also from the eyes of entrepreneurship. Because there are so many things that we can apply in entrepreneurship that is condensed in this beautiful book. If we go with the little prince into each planet, we will see from the entrepreneurial perspective things that has to do with connection, with meaning, with purpose, with creativity, with seeing things from another perspective. Do you remember this drawing that, okay, is it a hat? No, it's an elephant eating a snake. So we see only from the outside, but how we can see it from another perspective. Or the box, when finally he gives a box, we don't see what is inside, but he's convinced what is inside. So that comes the dreaming, but the dreaming with that intention that is not fantasizing, right? So that applying to entrepreneurship, or the travels to the different planets. The planet where these men, I want to be seen, just look at me, right? So how many times we go into that mode in entrepreneurship, or learning from the planet where this man is observing and discovering stars around. So I invite you to read again with that perspective as an entrepreneur and learn from it. Again, it comes from the inside out.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for that book. It reminds me of a conversation we had a couple of times before, where one of the person I was talking to recommended you to why we should all read children's books as adults, because there's a lot of information in there that we forget as we get older, and seeing these books, these wonderful books that we've read earlier, and reviewing them with a slightly different view is a brilliant way of reconnecting, relearning the information and the messages that come from these, because they all bring with them a message. So thank you very much for that recommendation, and it's not what I expected, but it's lovely. It's a lovely book to reconnect with. So thank you very much for that. Um, I would love to just ensure that people who have listened to this and want to find more about what you do, where's the best place for them to connect with you and find out with you, and maybe start some communication with you?
Right now, the best place is LinkedIn. My name Tania Blanco, and my handle on LinkedIn is Tania Blanco Blanco. Because you are not going to believe, no, you are going to believe, even though communication and all I share with you is part of my work, and I am very good helping others, I went through all these struggles of finding my own message. And so right now I'm like recreating everything, and I will put together again my website and all that. So right now the best place to connect with me is on LinkedIn, Tania Blanco, and the handle is Tania Blanco Blanco.
Lovely, and I will put the links in some comments wherever you find this. So it's been lovely talking to you. I have enjoyed this conversation, and the beauty of these conversations is each one is different, each one is unique. Much like when you we were talking before, we're all unique, we're all individual, and I've loved having the conversation. So thank you very much for the conversation, and we will. We will have to have this conversation again sometime and carry on. So, but in the
Thank you.
meantime, I will say we will talk to you some other time.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, everybody. And remember, the power is within you.
Thank you. So for those who've been watching this, thank you very much. Please do reconnect and connect with Tania. Do go and say hi. Go and find her in LinkedIn and talk to her and connect with her. And I will love to see you again. So for the end of this, I hope you have a great second half, and may your second half be your best half. And I will see you soon. See you next week.